So I probably would like to get going. This is the second of three joint Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen budget presentations for the town of Woodbridge. Tonight is Thursday, January 27th, 2022. And with that, whoever is here, I'm glad to have you. I can't see everybody, but Adam, are you ready to go with Parks Department?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, now let's get the ball rolling on my Parks Department budget, okay?
Okay. It doesn't look too dangerous.
No, it's not. It's not. We can start off with, the wages. That's going up a little bit because of contractual agreements.
Yep.
My part-time seasonal is going down a tad. I'll go over the ones that are changing. The buyback sick days are going up by like 100 and change. Uniform allowance is going up a little bit. So my budget's going up, but to have a zero increase budget, I've come up with a couple of options, which you probably have read in the memo. One of them is take a week's time off a seasonal employee to cut the budget down to $883 savings. And the other one is to remove the portable restroom at the tennis courts on Center Road. And that would save over $2,000, bringing the budget under budget for next year. So I'd have a zero increase budget.
If that becomes necessary, which we're not there yet, but
Right.
thank you for considering that.
There's some downfalls to moving the porta potty down to. There is a portable restroom at center field. They could use that one down there, or they could use the town hall bathroom. If we have to make sacrifices, I think that should be one of them, because I think more people use it that are driving up in cars than people that are playing tennis. That's my observation. So
Okay.
that's it. Nothing else has changed in my budget.
Anybody have a question for Adam on the Parks Department? Okay.
I'd just like to thank Adam for his wonderful job on the budget, and also the 0% increase suggestions, and skating rink.
It's up and running.
I know, thank you.
People
And also,
were on it first thing this morning, early. I couldn't believe it.
I know, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Exciting. You're
And
welcome.
also putting up the signs at the country club regarding no skating at the
Yep.
we don't want anything bad to happen, so that's good.
Definitely not. And
Thank
I'll
you.
check that. I'll actually check it tomorrow and see if they're still up.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, everybody.
And then one thing I just like to thank Adam for all his hard work on all the fields to keep all the ball fields in great shape. We've been working great together for all these years, and I just want to personally thank him for all his work.
23 years, Dwight. You believe
It's been
it?
a while. I know it's been a while, but it's a good run.
Yes, we're still going.
It's been a great run.
Yes. Thank you. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
All right, you.
Where's
Here's my brother, Brad.
your brother Brad?
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Brad. Okay, so first up is building maintenance and capital item.
Okay. Building maintenance. I'd like to go over it line by line. Obviously, there are wages in there, full-time and part-time, that you've heard before, are all contracted. The only lines that I've gone up on, I'll start with the first line I've gone down with, is general professional services. I've dropped that line from 52.5 all the way down to 57.98. That is just for contracted services. Those are the services that I do every year that are required, that I can't get around. The next item that went up is repair and maintenance to building. Now, I've been doing building maintenance for the town of Woodbridge for 29 years. And I know you all remember Joe Adalizzi, who I used to work for, who retired in 2013. Since then, I don't believe there has ever been an increase in building maintenance for repair and maintenance. And I have to say that the department has grown considerably. Our responsibilities have grown immensely. And I feel at this time, I need more money in that line to do further repairs. Uh, Things in the public works garage are getting older. I have to do repairs there. I do more repairs in all the other town buildings. I also am responsible for the country club. I do repairs at the country club on the outside of the property and to the old structures that have been abandoned. I've done considerable work there. I have a mental list of all the repairs that I put off every year, low priority repairs that I do not do simply because I do not have funds in the budget to do them. So every year there are multiple items that I don't get to because I simply do not have the money to do it. I would not ask for an additional $4,000 increase if it wasn't absolutely necessary. I can assure everybody in building maintenance, I look at the operating budget 4 times a month. I know exactly what I spend it on. There's no fluff. I don't carry a very large inventory, if any at all, for any repair in any building. I think it's absolutely necessary that based on what I do every day in 2021, that I have extra funds to do that, or every year I will continue to have to postpone repairs and set them back till the next budget year. And the money is used.
Brad, I really don't think you have to explain yourself. You've done a phenomenal job over the years, and
I don't like asking for
careful
money.
with money and always came to us if you needed money. So you really don't have to explain that, really.
Yeah. I just wanted to let everybody know that I pay close attention to my budget.
You
I
do.
appreciate the money that's given to me every year. I use it as wisely as I can. I enjoy taking on more responsibilities and more work. I've reduced cell phone. Those are the 3 phones in town for 1 maintenance technician and 2 full-time custodians. There's no fluff there. It's just for a phone, no screensavers, no chargers. It's so that I can get in contact with the custodians that I run. All the other items in the building maintenance budget are the same. Equipment parts, fuel, maintenance supplies went up $1,000. Those are the costs for cleaning products, paper goods, anything that has to do with custodial service in the town. We're using more. I have a very good full-time custodian. He does more, constantly waxing floors and trying to do the best to keep the buildings as clean as possible during these hard times, especially. And that's it for building maintenance.
How about, it says here capital item. Is there a capital item?
There is a capital. I had sent a letter to Tony Genovese a month ago, I guess. It's about the removal of underground storage tanks. One that's located at the Country Club of Woodbridge, one that's located at the new firehouse. As of December 31st or December 1st of this year, new deep regulations came out on what we can and can't do with underground tanks. I enlisted the help of LEP, an environmentalist that the town has used before, to review and inspect 3 tanks in town, including the one at Beecher Road School, makes it number 3. After multiple inspections, I probably visited the sites with him on 3 occasions since December 21st. We've determined all 3 tanks need to come out. The one at the golf course needs to be removed, which can be done. The one at the new firehouse, we both agree, myself and the LEP, that it should stay in place and be abandoned on site, which is allowed by the state. We can do that if we follow regulations. The one at Beecher Road School, I wrote a proposal for Beecher to assist them in removing that tank and giving the cost of that assistance, and so they can add that to their capital budget. the building manager over there, the facilities manager, went and got a quote. I took that quote and I redid his quote to come in a lot less than Beecher Road School's quote, and told them that they needed to put it in their capital budget, and I would assist them in taking out that tank. We will save money at Beecher if we go that route. It's not too difficult to take the one out at the country club. They're all fiberglass tanks. They're all double walled. The reason they have to come out is because of their age, their condition, and tanks that are in the ground today all have devices on them that will alarm you in case of a tank leak, overfill protection, things of that nature. The golf course tank no longer has those protection devices. The one at the firehouse no longer has those protections. The manhole entry points are filled with water, wiring is rotted, the sensors are rotted, steel is beginning to rust in all the manhole covers and the fill locations on both tanks. And that includes Beecher Road School. So with the LEP's recommendation in mind, I'm requesting that amount. I believe it's $35,000 to remove the 2 tanks for the town of Woodbridge.
Okay.
I just want to make a point of clarification. So the town crew is Brad's gonna oversee the town crew removing the tanks. That's a big
That's
reason
correct.
for the savings,
Okay,
as
good.
opposed to an outside contractor.
Okay.
And the firehouse tank is because of its location. It's would be difficult to take it out.
It's gotta be
It's
really new
underneath
though.
the-
the
Well, it's
fire.
underneath the its location is near the
Next to the 9/11 memorial.
9/11 memorial, right?
Yeah. It'd be a great disturbance to the front of the firehouse, and it's much easier to abandon in place.
Okay, any questions on Brad's building maintenance and capital?
I just had a quick question about the tank that's at Beecher. Is that located in the north parking lot, north
That's
playground
correct.
area?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
So
North
we stopped using that in about 2012 when we got the new gas-fired heating system
Yeah,
in there?
that was abandoned. That's correct.
Okay, and you're saying that one has to be removed. It can't be abandoned in place?
It cannot be abandoned in place.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question about the country club tank.
Yeah.
What are your plans for that tank?
After the tank is removed, it obviously needs to be pumped out, thoroughly washed out and cleaned, and then lifted out of the ground and removed. It will be destroyed. Will be cut up, crushed. We'll bring it back to Public Works and do that type of work, and we can simply dispose of it as regular waste.
Right. But that building is shut down. To my knowledge, it's not heated.
That's correct.
So why would there be anything in the tank?
Leftover fuel oil in the tank that wasn't burned off when the country club was operating. You would never, you get a date to shut down the country club, whatever's in the tank at that time from a delivery that may have happened a month prior is what's in the tank. I can tell you the product level in that tank. The country club currently has 1,144 gallons in it. It's a 5,000 gallon tank.
Right. So what's going to happen to that oil? Is that oil usable or?
There is no market for that oil. If I were to attempt to try and get rid of it, the waste disposal company would first charge me for cleaning their truck. They'd have to wash out their suction truck so it's completely spotless. They'd have to attempt to get just heating oil out, no sludge, no water, and then find somebody that's willing to accept it.
What
That's
about
that's
what about-
all expense the
Go
town
ahead.
has to incur.
what about the paving companies? Don't they use that to make asphalt? They use old oil to make asphalt?
Not that I know of heating oil. I'm dealing with ACV Environmental, who are very good, well-known from Bridgeport, that suck out a lot of the tanks, and they have had no recent requests to give or sell heating oil from any of their people that they work for. None.
Okay, my other question has to do with, you mentioned something about not having inventory of parts on board.
We
So that-
don't have substantial
Right.
inventory. No.
So do we utilize vendors who will deliver parts that we need rather than having to send our people down to look for things and, spend their time doing that?
It has a lot to do with how fast I need a specific part or product. If, for instance, I'm working at the golf course and there's been vandalism and there's a hole in a door, and I need 2 sheets of plywood, maintenance will go get the plywood. If I need a pump or a motor and I can't provide enough information to a parts store such as Valley Electric or Valley Pump, and he wants to see the old pump to make sure that we're talking apples to apples and he can get the exact pump, I will definitely bring the pump to him. There are vendors we use, Granger we use quite frequently. We'll call and place a delivery. I don't have Home Depot, Lowe's, companies of that nature or building or providers of that nature send me anything. Nothing.
Okay,
There's too
thank
much
you.
of a risk for a part that costs $1,200 to be sent in the mail to find out it's the wrong part. It's much easier if it's a local drive, local within Orange, to North Haven, to visibly look at an expensive part before I purchase the part. Very important.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, then let's move on to pool and gym, which is 1515.
Pool and gym. I'll describe pool and gym, even though it's a different location. We'll go down line by line. I have obviously wages. Half of my wages are taken from pool and gym, and 1 custodian part-time I pay for over there for Thursday and Friday nights, all day Saturday and all day Sunday for recreation events. The buyback sick is obviously there. That speaks for itself. Telephone, except that is my town cell phone. I've eliminated the 911 phone line. Now we use Beecher Road School's telephone that's in that office. And I've eliminated the line that used to go down to the pool controller. I visit the site so frequently, I don't need the controller to call me anymore. The only difference is maintenance. Maintenance was at 17.5. I'd like to get 22,350 for next fiscal year to do more repairs. I have pieces of tile missing on the deck. I have pieces of tile missing inside the pool underwater. I have lighting repairs to do. I am now responsible, and I have not been in the past, to do the emergency lighting for the pool. That requires a lift. Lift rentals are expensive. The emergency lights are expected every year. If I have more than 1 emergency light out on the pool deck, the fire marshal insists that I get a lift and change those lights. I have other bathroom and locker room repairs that I put off. The ladies' locker room, bathroom needs repairs. I have a cracked sink. I've been living with a cracked sink in the ladies' locker room for 2 years. I simply do not have the funds after I do all my purchase orders to do every repair for the pool. And some of these repairs are simple repairs, some are complicated, some require contractors such as tiling. The filter room, I have valves. I have 8 valves in the filter room. This year I replaced 4. I no longer have money in my budget in pool and gym to replace the other floor that drip. I know I need probes for the pool controller. I know I need new lines for the chlorine. It just goes on and on. Prices go up. I do most of the repairs in the pool I do myself. After all the POs, like I said, I just simply do not have enough money in the maintenance budget to finish the repairs. They're all important.
And
Okay,
Matt, I just want to make a
again,
comment.
no, we don't question you on that.
Yep.
I want to make a comment on the maintenance. For the maintenance, part-time maintenance is up so much because in the current year, we reduced it due to COVID because there was not a lot of programming in the early part of the year. So if you look at 2 years ago, that's or pre-COVID, that's more in line with sort of where historically our maintenance line has been. And we cut back on the, that's the part-time maintenance, that's the
Yes.
labor. Right, and then, and the maintenance too, we cut back a little because there wasn't as much activity, there wasn't as much chlorine. So those are that's why you'll see a big increase in another one reason.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on pool and gym for Adam, for Brad?
Matt,
Yes.
I do have an update on the pool I'd like to share with everybody.
Sure.
It's a small update. It has come to my attention that there's a problem with the pool, unfortunately. I don't know how serious it is. I just identified the problem starting Monday and have met with Tony. I believe it was on Monday or Tuesday to discuss my findings with the pool and the structure itself. After discussing it with Tony, we came up with a solution to hire a professional to look at my findings to tell me whether or not I have a serious problem, a minor problem, or a medium problem. And that meeting with the engineer is for tomorrow afternoon at 8:30 in the morning for him to look at the structure down in the filter room, which would be the back wall of the pool. And the only thing further I can say on that would be it has to do with the Virginia Graham Baker Act and pool filter and grates. And that's all I really know now. I will know more for the next Board of Selectmen meeting after the meeting with the engineer on this Friday, tomorrow. I just
Okay,
want to
that
bring
sounds,
your
that
attention.
sounds more like an emergency possibility and not necessarily part of next year's budget, but we'll see.
We'll see. I need more information, but I just wanted to keep you advised that there's something going on. The pool will be closing. Last day is Friday. And the recreation bar, I'm sure Johnny A will mention it in his budget presentation.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody.
Next is the Conservation Commission. Is somebody here for that, Tony, or that's pretty small?
Yes,
Yes.
this is Tim Austin. I'm here for
Tim's
the
here, yep.
Conservation Commission.
Okay,
Good evening, everybody. This is my first time with you all for the budget review, so I will take whatever guidance you'd like to give me on how to go through this. I think from the little I could pick up from the couple presentations before me, many of you are looking at the numbers based upon the accounts. If I picked that up correctly, I think it's important for the Conservation Commission to understand our numbers in the accounts, that you look at the supplemental narrative, if you haven't had a chance to do that already. The Conservation Commission, there are a lot of new members, there are a lot of good committed members of the Conservation Commission, passionate about what they're doing. We've pivoted this year from what I can tell of past budgets, and are looking to begin and request funding for 4 initiatives. And those are outlined in the supplemental narrative. I won't go through those per se. If you have questions, I'd be glad to address those. The numbers translate back to the accounts for those items. And those are the initiative part of the budget.
I think the only question that's kind of obvious is you're going from 1,000 to 3,450, which is 2,450. There's 2,000 for overtime regular. Usually you've got to have regular before you have overtime regular. So what is that?
I can comment on that a little, actually.
Go, thank you.
I could help clear that up. So,
Thank you.
the Conservation Commission has requested someone to take minutes of their meetings. So to
Okay.
the extent we have an existing staff member take minutes, it's most likely going to be an overtime situation for that particular staff member. So that's an estimate on how much that would cost.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, anybody?
I have a quick question. I see the 22 adopted budget was 1,000 and the projected expenditures are 500. So you will have 500 in your account. Does that reduce what you need for next year to 2,950?
Well, that's, and perhaps I misunderstood the process being new, but I thought that was a projection through the start of the fiscal year, coming up in July.
That's correct. So if you don't use it by June 30th, you'll,
You'll
goes back
lose
to the
that
general fund,
for that
correct?
year. But
Correct.
for instance, the trail challenge, it's something we're trying to get started, and we spend some monies there coming up. That was in the budget this year. So in the last year, I don't think there was represented what these monies were for, so that when there was printing, binding, or programs and publicity, I should say, and advertisement or signage, it was lumped in there without explanation. So I've chosen to try to represent this through initiatives and then fit them back into the account structure that we use.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Quick question about dues and fees, the professional development. You're taking that down to zero. Is someone else picking up the cost of that professional affiliation that's usually carried there?
No, that is an error of ignorance on my part. I did not realize until about I don't know, 5-6 days ago, that we shared a membership to CASIWIC, the Coalition of Conservation and Inland Wetlands Commissions, with the Inland Wetland Agency, and there's a $60 membership that we probably would have to do unless it's put back in, and I didn't feel like that close to these meetings, I should try to rearrange or redo the budget. So we either it gets put back in now, or we just fund it from one of the other line items to make that request to Tony to flip that over.
I would just make Tony aware of that.
Yes, then that's what the path I was going to go down. $60 didn't seem, and I'm not aware of any other obligations, Sheila. If there are, I guess I would appreciate knowing about them.
All right.
Anything
It's just, I
else?
think in COVID times, the conference they usually have probably didn't take place, or was virtual, and I wasn't aware of anybody that went from conservation, so just didn't know about that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Good night.
Okay. And next is the Economic Development Commission. Is somebody here for that, Tony?
Yes, I'm here. It's Sean.
Okay.
Yes, Sean is here, yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Similar to Tim, this is my first time with you folks. I'm standing in for Robert Scherer, who had a prior commitment tonight. So you have our proposed budget. We discussed it amongst ourselves as a commission a couple meetings ago. It's relatively modest budget, but we were aware of the budget challenges in town, so we did discuss it thoroughly to make sure that these are indeed numbers that we'll use. We've been having some success engaging with the local businesses with the Love Your Local program last year. We also had a presentation with local business owners this past fall to share our survey results. So we are engaging with the local business community, and these funds do help us with that.
Okay. Any questions for Sean? It was the same budget as last year, so, okay.
That's flat.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks.
Okay, next is the Police Commission. And I see a familiar face out there in TV land. They brought out the big guns for this one. Andy Esposito's here for the Police Commission. So anybody else for police here? I'm sure Frank's here, right?
I'm here, Matt. Yep.
Okay. All right.
And
there he is.
Deputy Chief Smith is
Okay.
on as well.
He put his uniform on. We're in trouble. All right, let me just get to so it's 12:10, everybody. 12:10. Give us a second. Okay, go ahead, Frank. You know the routine.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And as always, as it's been been for the past several years. The majority of our operating budget reflects the contractual obligations. This year coming, it'll be a 2.4% salary increase is in there as well. And the remainder of our budget is associated with our operating expenses. Our most significant increases this year that we're proposing include the promotion of one existing patrol officer to the rank of sergeant, and one additional patrol officer and one additional dispatcher, which I will highlight and give you some reasoning for. So the additional officer, the police department staffing levels, as you know, they've been significantly reduced over the past few years with the elimination of 3 full-time positions. So currently we're operating well below staffing levels that we ever operated with before, and well below what was previously been recommended in studies that were done. And we do that the best to our ability, covering the town's 19 plus square miles as we try to ensure public safety, officer safety, and maintain the quality of life that our residents enjoy. But the world around us is, it's changing, and the same is happening here with the landscape in town. It's not the same as it was years ago, and I think we just have to be realistic and acknowledge that. Times are changing, but we still have occasions where we have shifts staffed with only 2 officers on patrol, and at times there's no supervisor working, and that's just due to the staffing levels. We're situated right in between 2 major cities, Waterbury and New Haven, that are experiencing, their certain share of a rise in violent crimes, and that crime has and continues to impact our community as well. We've had 3 homicides since I've been chief, 2018, 2019, and 2021, and all, our seizures of firearms and incidents about firearms all around us, but just in our town alone are, more than we've ever seen. And I just want to share a few of those with you that have occurred during the recent weeks. In the first incident, we had 2 officers working, and they ended up struggling with a suspect that was armed with a handgun. This was up on the Amity Road, up on the Bethany line up that way, and they had a call from mutual aid because they were there by themselves, and there was nobody else available to respond to other calls at that time. Several weeks ago, we had a serious motor vehicle accident overnight down on the Litchfield Turnpike, and there were only 2 officers working, and they were tied up at that accident, and they were searching along with the fire department in the woods for occupants of the vehicle that may have been ejected. And at that same time, never fails, 3 additional calls for assistance came in, spread out through town. There was a 911 call at the north end of the Amity Road, another suspicious activity call at a residence over the Ansonia Road, the far opposite side, and something else at one of the commercial businesses that's open overnight. So we had nobody respond, and we called to mutual aid in Ansonia, went to 1 call, and the state police came to another. And then just recently, at the beginning of this month, our officers responded just a few weeks ago to a carjacking down on Lucy Street. And one of the suspects of that was brandishing a handgun. One of our 2 officers working located the suspects, followed them into New Haven, and saw them discard the handgun. He made an apprehension on that, and he ordered the suspect to the ground at gunpoint. And but he was all alone and had to wait for a while till the other officer came from town, during which time, an antagonistic crowd started gathering. So it got, kind of got a little hairy there for a moment. With the potential of violent crime to occur, threats being made to houses of worship, bomb threats, school lockdown scenarios, and all these types of serious incidents that are becoming more prevalent nationwide, we feel that we need to ensure more consistent and adequate staffing levels so that we could immediately address any threats that we're presented with. Requesting mutual aid and assistance from other towns and agencies, and calling in staff from home. We always do that, and that it's all part of the process, and it occurs and it will continue to occur. But we just need to remain mindful that the delays associated with that could really be problematic. So I just want to turn it over to the deputy chief for a minute. He has some statistics regarding some of the things that we've been experiencing that we'd like to share with you guys tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Concerning the addition of one officer, I did a little statistical study as to what's actually going on in town. In 2021, the Woodbridge Police Department generated 32,435 case numbers, which is a little over a 10% increase from our 2020 numbers. During 2021, and I'm excuse me, I'm talking the calendar year 2021, there were 2,982 incidents in which 2 officer minimum is required. So that's about 9.19% of our call volume. There might have been even other incidents in which we needed more than or 2 officers minimum, possibly more. Our officers are on duty 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So there's a total of 1,095 shifts per year. In 2021, on 329 shifts, which is about 30%, there were only 2 officers on patrol. There have been numerous times, as the chief has said throughout the year, where we've had insufficient staffing. When there are 2 officers responding to a call, could be something that is domestic violence, weapon, could be a motor vehicle accident where we have to direct traffic. It could be handling a mentally ill person. There's a gamut of cases that we go to, incidents that we go to that require 2 officers. It makes for the rest of our town being unprotected. It's not only a danger for our officers, but more importantly, it's a danger to our community. For instance, if there's a domestic dispute in the Lucy Street area, we have 2 officers responding, becomes a violent domestic. There's a medical call somewhere on Acorn Hill or somewhere up north. We have no one to respond. This is starting to happen a little more frequently. The addition of 1 officer would greatly enhance our ability to provide more efficient police service to our community and really provide a better quality of life to our residents. With the 1 officer, we envision using, anyone that we can, bring in to join our ranks to, enhance our community policing efforts. We'd like to have more people stop in businesses, do other things, more community block watches, things of that sort, which would be needed. As we all know, violence in America is skyrocketing, especially against the police. There's been 13 police officers shot in the United States in the last week, and it can happen anywhere. So it's getting to be a little bit dangerous, and the addition of 1 officer to our 23 officer staff would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Yep. So I hope that, that information conveys the importance of the additional patrol officer, how important we feel that is for us to enhance public safety, officer safety, and also it will assist us in managing overtime costs, because the more people we have, the less times we have to call someone in. So that's our reasoning for the proposal with that. We're also proposing the promotion of an additional sergeant, and that would be from our current rank, so there would be no increase in staffing, just a promotion of a patrol officer to the rank of sergeant. Adequate supervisory oversight is important to ensure police accountability and to reduce unnecessary risks of exposure to civil liability. Our supervision was reduced, a few years ago with the removal of the lieutenant position, and the proposed promotion would allow us to maximize our road patrol supervision, and it would not increase staffing levels. We stay at the same number there. Additionally, when the lieutenant's position was removed, the town entered into a labor agreement with the police union, granting the officer in charge, who's the senior ranking officer at the time, he gets 2 hours of compensatory time for each shift that they work when there's no sergeant on duty. So, that adds up after a while, and in fiscal year 21, the compensatory time equated to an additional 71 extra days off being granted. and manpower obviously being reduced because of that. Already during the first 7 months of this current fiscal year 22, officers have earned 47 days off in compensatory time. So promoting an additional sergeant will increase supervision and at the same time will reduce the amount of comp time having to be given, thus enabling us to have more staff on the road. Moving on to the dispatcher's line, it's a 50225. We have a funding request in there for an additional dispatcher, and that serves to expand the number of dispatchers that we have from 6 to 7 in an effort to enhance telecommunications services between the public and all our police, fire, and EMS first responders. The current dispatch staffing level of 6 permits us to have a schedule that provides only 9 shifts out of 21 shifts per week, where we have 2 dispatchers on at once. And that doesn't include when there's vacations, absences, sick time, things of that nature. So when there's an extended timeout, one of the 2 dispatchers gets rotated to save overtime. So then we knock that back down to 1. So currently, when a major incident occurs or multiple calls or incidents come in at the same time, and there's a single dispatcher on alone, he or she has to multitask the best they can, juggling between dispatching and then responding to radio calls from police, fire, and EMS, answering multiple 911 calls coming in all at the same time, routine calls coming in, and at times even citizens coming into the lobby. It becomes very stressful during those scenarios, and realistically, at times, no matter what and no matter how proficient the dispatcher may be, someone must wait or be delayed on the phone or on the radio. There's only so much that one person could do. The dispatch consultant that was recently hired by the town, he's recommended the increase of our dispatch staff by 1, so from 6 to 7. This would allow us to modify their work schedule to one that would be more operationally efficient and which would expand our dispatch coverage, especially during peak times. While we do that, at the same time, we'll be more cost effective when providing coverage for storms, major incidents, and absences. Still, when we have an absence, like I said, there'll be one on, so it won't be a bare bones minimum that forces an overtime situation. Additionally, the implementation of a modified work schedule will be more conducive to the dispatcher's overall working condition and dispatcher retention, as it will improve their work schedule and allow the dispatchers the benefit of having occasional weekend time off rather than permanent fixed days off as they have now. I can run down a few more lines. If somebody had a question. Yes, sir.
Frank White. Wasn't this the recommendation of the consultant with the town?
The additional dispatcher. He was a dispatcher.
This was one of the recommendations, right?
Yes, it was. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Under 5030, part-time maintenance.
I think it was the recommendation not only of the consultant, but it was the dispatch committee. Is that correct, Andy? You're muted, my friend. It was the committee.
Also. Can you hear me? Am I muted?
Now, no, now you're okay. Say it one more time.
All right, I guess not.
Oh, we got you. Try again.
All right, try again.
One more time.
You're on.
I'm on?
You're on,
Yes, that was a recommendation of the committee also.
which is made up of fire, police, and Tony sits on that as a
He
non-voting.
sits on that also. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me continue on, Matt.
Okay.
Chief, I wanted to save my comments till the end, but since people have jumped in here, I did want to discuss the dispatch situation. I know you've asked for an additional individual for dispatch and also some changes to dispatch, but the state of Connecticut has been trying to consolidate dispatching into regional areas to save on the cost and also to improve the efficiency have greater depth and greater supervision. And to this end, they have offered some rewards for this, cash rewards and rewards in terms of software and computer supplementation. And as far as I've heard, this has not been considered by our department, and I'd like to know, what your thoughts are on this.
Yes, so, you are correct that that's something that's been discussed and talked about for years, that someday they may do forced regionalization of PSAPs, the primary service answering points. And we have discussed that amongst ourselves, that going forward, that may be a way that we might want to proceed. But I know my thought is that I have no problem with that, when the time comes, but I think that we need to move forward and become the best we could be now and show others that this would be a place that they would want to come to when we, if and when we ever get to that point and it becomes an opportunity. So, that is an option for the future, but, we certainly would have to have the staffing for that. And I, think that we should set a good example and lead by example with that and have people want to follow and come here.
Right. But are we working to that goal? Because I know the state is pushing pretty hard. We have, I don't know, something like 130 municipalities, each with its own dispatch. And you look at a state like Virginia or Pennsylvania, and they have, a handful, 10, 12, 15, and they work pretty well. They have more depth, they have more supervision, and it's a lot cheaper for everybody, including the town. So anyway, I just wanted to make that comment and leave you with that thought and see if we can maybe work to that in the future.
Yeah, and this would be a step in that direction, in the right direction. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, under 50330, part-time maintenance, there was an increase there of about $4,300. We have an older fleet with less cars being replaced over the years, and our mileage, as you know, it's been increasing. We've been experiencing multiple repairs. But using our mechanic, it's a lot more cost-effective than bringing an out-of-warranty vehicle to the dealer for service. Currently, our mechanic's budgeted for 12 hours per week, but recently he's been averaging close to 17 and a half hours per week due to unanticipated yet necessary repairs that we've been dealing with. So the proposed budget request is a slight increase in hours to 15 hours per week for fleet maintenance. So that's the increase there. And then, the big one is, another big one is overtime police. We're trying to give you the realistic numbers. Historically, that's, we've always been about at that number. Although we do our best to control and minimize overtime, unfortunately, it is necessary to ensure public safety operations 24/7. And dependent on the timing and frequency of incidents, crimes, storms, and the like. But along with that, diminished staffing increases the frequency of the times requiring overtime. So, that's kind of what we're faced with. If our staffing is low, we have a greater frequency of incidents that require us calling someone in or holding someone over to pay overtime. And as I mentioned earlier, we continue to provide the same services that we were doing, even though we have 3 less bodies. We're still maintaining 2 school resource officers. And all that is, directly correlating, our staffing on the road is correlating with our increase in overtime. So, I can assure you that the deputy chief and I closely monitor the overtime expenditures, and there's absolutely no frivolous or unnecessary overtime expenditures, only that which is necessary to ensure the proper delivery of services. Our overtime and training went up just a slight bit, and that reflects salary increases. And then another recommendation of the dispatch consultant, and I believe in the dispatch committee, was to increase telecommunicator training opportunities for dispatchers. So that's included in there. And there's still a lot of ongoing training and details being worked out regarding the police accountability training and the logistics of some of that. So that's a reflection of that. The data processing line on the operational side, that's 52210. We had increases in there. Part of it had to do with annual service contracts that went up, a bunch of those, but two new items in there. The first one was the Office 365 licensing. So in conjunction with our IT infrastructure upgrade project, and to mirror what was done at the town hall when they did phase one of the similar upgrade, we're seeking funding to allow us to switch over all of our endpoints to Microsoft Office 365 to increase efficiency and to keep our operating systems uniform throughout the facility and kind of throughout the town. That's the way we're going. And then the other new proposal in there is for something called Power DMS. Power DMS is a policy and procedures management and training software package. And it's really of importance in ensuring and tracking our personnel's understanding and accountability and accessibility of the general orders. And at the same time, it works to reduce some risk of liability, and especially with all the new training mandates and things that have been enacted recently. The deputy chief is familiar with the benefits of the software from his tenure in Hamden, and he could speak more to you and share some of the attributes that he's familiar with of the package.
Yes, our DMS is a document management system that we used in Hamden for quite some time. Working in internal affairs for a good majority of my career, using Power DMS really assisted the department, me in particular, with regards to making sure that all of our officers understood policy, understood the rules and regulations, and knew what they were doing in the field. Excuse me. What it does, it offers policy revisions and updates. The program allows the administrator to easily revise and update our ever-changing policies. So if we need to change a policy, we can go into the computer program and just change it on the computer. What this would do, we would no longer have to use all of the paper that we've been using. Recently received correspondence from the town to try to limit our paper use. Now, when we have to revise a policy, we have to make copies, we have to distribute those copies. Now it will be accessible to everyone on their computer and their mobile data terminal. Power DMS would be readily available to every officer, both on their computer and their MDT. And where that helps us is that if an officer is in the field, and the officer has a question, it could be on domestic violence, when to give the domestic violence card, what kind of services to offer. It could be how to handle the mentally ill. What do I need to do? How do I search with a bomb? Things of that sort. Minus a supervisor for a short period of time, or if someone needs that information in a pinch, the officer can go right to the computer, go to the policy, and find out exactly how we're going to handle that particular situation. It's invaluable. The other thing is that it holds our officers accountable. With policing as we see it today in our country, we want to make sure that all of our officers are very well trained and they're accountable. So when there's an investigation, no one can say, I didn't know, I can't do this. We could actually put together the training. We could have our officers, require them once per month to read the duty to intervene statute or policy, how to handle an active shooter, no matter, bias and bigotry, no matter what is in our policy, we can mandate that our officers review that and sign off on it. What Power DMS also does is it provides a test to the user, so we know that our officers truly understand what the policy is. This helps not only in internal affairs, but would help us in civil litigation if we're going to be sued for a lack of training, lack of understanding, or improper procedures. The other thing that it does for us as administrators is it allows us to know and track every single one of our officers, that they truly understand the policy of the department, the rules and regulations of the department, and that they know what they're doing in the field. So it's, there's a lot of software, a lot of different programs using it in Hamden. It has been, it's worked like a charm, and I think it'd be a pretty good investment.
Yeah, and it's something that a lot of the towns all around use. We've just never got to that point, but and coupled with all our network infrastructure and all that we're doing now, and it's just the most opportune time for that. So that's why we feel strongly on that topic. One of the other lines that went up was 53520, $5,000, and that was due to the our vehicles in the high mileage and the aging vehicles, and coupled with big large price increases that have gone up. And I believe that line was cut down a little bit from this year from what it was the previous year. So we're just trying to keep up with that. The next one, 54630, professional development training. There's new mandatory training for our telecommunicators that begins this year. So that's in there. It's non-line uniform telecommunicator training. So that's the increase reflected there. And also the price of the ammunition, our armors told us last year and again this year, significant price increases that we've been seeing with that, supply and demand issue. And then 55111, the computer line. This line was new to our budget this current year, and the proposed funding for fiscal year 23 coincides again with our IT infrastructure upgrade that's nearing completion, I'm happy to say. So included in this budget proposal is the overdue replacement of aging computer workstations, and that's conjunction with the upgrade, and will allow us to establish a baseline for the development of a comprehensive endpoint replacement cycle. All these units and that cycle is under the consultation with and recommended by TBNG, the town's IT management vendor. And it will also assist us in efficiency and reduce vulnerability against cyber security threats, ransomware threats, and more importantly, or equally important, to maintain security compliance with our associated state and federal audits that will be coming up with that. And 55145, the tires, oil, and gas, there's a significant increase with that, but that Tony's aware of that, and that correlates with the new gas bid that the town has settled on, and the price of gas went, for the amount of gallons we're using, there's like a $7,400 increase on that. The oil went up per barrel, went way up, and our tires went up for the same amount of tires we bought last year, went up about almost $1,000. So those are those increases there. And just the final two, capital machinery. We need to replace a taser. We have one that's nearing its end of life, and it'll be out of warranty shortly. And what happens with those, that when they do fail and we send it back to Taser for a repair, they won't repair it. They won't even send it back. So if it's out of warranty, they say it's at end of life and it needs to be replaced. So for liability reasons, you're unable to repair that. So that's something that we're going to need, and that's kind of a cycle we usually keep every year. There's a couple other little small items in there, and then other capital furniture and fixtures. And as we've been talking for years, the police department was really looking for storage space. We've been bursting at the seams with the new IT infrastructure. We're moving the servers and some of the equipment out of the room, one of the interior rooms, to the outbuilding, the climate controlled building outdoors. So that's going to free up this room for us for some storage. And also, we were able to acquire the old Boy Scout room in the back of the building. But we need to get some, some shelving and storage for those. So that's, there's $2,500 in there, and that's what that's associated with. And that's pretty much our budget proposal.
Okay, questions?
Hello, Chief, I was listening to your comments about the increased cost of maintenance of your vehicles and the increased cost of gas and oil. As you know, this is a topic that's been close to my heart. And I found out some interesting things. As you know, lots of police departments are switching over to hybrid and all electric and also alternative fuel kinds of vehicles. And I think there's some interesting numbers here. I was looking at Tacoma, Washington. Tacoma, Washington purchased 34 Ford Police Interceptors, hybrid police interceptors. And I know we discussed those when you were talking about, replacing the cars. What they found out was they had a 40% savings in fuel. And on those 34 vehicles, they saved $773,000 in fuel, 28, almost 29,000 gallons. So that's about $2,000 per vehicle. There was another city, Burlington, Vermont, and what they did is they put anti-idling technology on their vehicles. Now they didn't want to do it, and the Vermont, let me get this right. The Vermont Clean Cities Coalition spoke with the police department. They talked to them about their reservations, and they addressed all those. And they put these on the vehicles. It cost them $500 per vehicle, and had a pilot program with 4 vehicles. And what they found was that they saved $811 in operating costs on these vehicles, and they reduced the operating hours by a third. So the wear and tear on the engines of these cars was markedly reduced, and that really is why the cars wear out. So I would just offer these numbers. I have some more, but I'm not going to, go into loss. I would just offer this to you to consider when you're replacing these interceptors. You do it with, at least consider doing it with hybrid vehicles, which are only a few $1,000s more than the conventional vehicles, but in the long run will save us a lot of money, both in gasoline maintenance and also in longevity, to say nothing of reducing the carbon footprint of our town. So I'd just like to leave you with that thought, and hopefully you'll agree.
Okay, no, thank you for that. And I know we've talked about that for.
I know we have.
This
The data wasn't in. That was, we got more police departments. I mean, Boston's going to go to 100% all electric, and by 2030, and Denver's doing the same. A lot of cities are doing this.
So
in Jersey.
In my capital budget presentation, in the paperwork that you have for the vehicles, we're looking at admin vehicles and also in patrol vehicle. And in there, the price, I gave both options. So
right
for your consideration.
Right. Exactly. I'm just trying to reinforce that idea. And then another thought here, just I'm not going to belabor this, but Secaucus, New Jersey bought a couple of Ford Escape hybrids. Those are smallest. They use them for traffic and they use them for construction. And what they found out is if those vehicles idle for 5 hours, the engine only comes on for 33 minutes, which is a tremendous savings in wear and tear on those vehicles. And for traffic and for construction, those vehicles idle all the time. They weren't not really going anywhere. So just throw that out. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Well, I've got to say something, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this, and in no way is this a reflection on our chief. It's just a statement I'm going to make and an opinion I have. Our chief told us that one more officer could avoid serious problems when 2 officers are called out or whatever. And 1 officer more would greatly alleviate the problems of the police department. And that is upsetting to me. And you've all heard this. Perhaps Deputy Chief Smith, you haven't heard this, but you're about to. My problem is this: we have a highly qualified, experienced, um, well-serviced police officer who spends his entire day at Beecher Road School. I've had a problem with this for the longest time. I don't know of any, well, I could tell you, I know Orange Bethany, they don't have a full-time police officer. The ongoing trend has been to hire a security guard. Why we need, I've asked numerous times for a explanation or a list of exactly what the SRO does all day long at Beecher Road School. I cannot imagine he's busy all day long. In fact, when Bob Gilbert was superintendent, I was really on this, and they did a survey at Beecher Road School. You might find this interesting, Deputy Chief. The survey was of parents and teachers and staff, et cetera, and the staff at Beecher Road School, 90% of them, 90% felt that they did not need a full-time police officer sitting in Beecher Road School all day long. I think the parents were like 50-50 divided, but clearly, and I've heard this from teachers one-on-one that I've talked to, they don't believe it's necessary. So my point is this, it's just something, I've been talking about this for years. Why the town, the entire town and all the residents are in, I'm not going to say jeopardy, but not being best service because you are short a police officer who is readily available. Why we can't take him out of Beecher Road School, put him in service, and let Beecher Road School find a security guard like every other school, elementary school. That's the way of the world. I mean, Sandy Hook, I remember when I made my presentation, Sandy Hook doesn't have an SRO at their school. Sandy Hook, think about that. Yet Beecher Road School has a full-time, highly paid police officer dedicated to that school. It's something I've been talking about for years, and I haven't talked about it that much lately, but after hearing you, Chief, say that you need one more police officer, I'm saying to myself, we have one more police officer. Just because Beecher Road School wants a full-time police officer doesn't mean that you have to supply him. If you don't have the manpower available, you should be able to keep that officer on the road protecting the entire town, not just Beecher Road School. So I just wanted to bring this up again because it bothers me. It bothers me that this officer could do a lot more good for all the taxpayers of the town and not just Beecher Road School. And that's all I'll say.
Right, and just to follow up on that, though, Matt, I just want to, in fairness, just clarify that several years ago, he's not, that SRO is not in our budget.
Oh, I know.
So that's that's my hands are tied as well.
To fill your request, and there's your officer that you need, and you wouldn't have to send him to training school. You wouldn't have to lose him for however long it takes, and then put him on probation, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm curious, Deputy Chief. I'm a Hamden guy. I'm a proud graduate of Hamden Helen Street School, and does every elementary school in Hamden have an SRO?
No, the only SROs in Hamden, there's one at the high school and one at the middle school, and there's quite a few elementary schools, they do not have one.
I know, and that's fully understandable. I would never question being involved with Amity. I would never question the SRO at Amity because, kids come in cars. You don't know what the things that they say. More things happen in the morning when these kids drive in cars. Well, the Beecher Road kids don't come with cars. Okay, so it's just something I've talked about for you. Now, I wasn't going to say anything, but when Chief Capiello said that we could use one more man, I'm saying to myself, we have him, but we'll see if anybody wants to follow up on that. Thank you very much, Deputy Chief.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much, Chief, Mr. Esposito, and Deputy Chief Smith. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is Town Plan and Zoning. I think, is Christine here?
I am, and you also have Rob Klee, who's the chair of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission.
Okay, so that is tab 1180. Let's see here. Okay, who's going to make the presentation?
Well, the budget remains the same, except that we've added in a line item of $10,000 which I explained in the memo, when in 2019, the zoning regulations were redone. And they were redone under the, with the aid of a planner from Hamden who combined both form-based zoning and Euclidean-based zoning in those regulations. And since they've been in place, we have found that there's any number of areas where things inadvertently have gotten left out, or they just don't mesh, or things aren't there. And this is beyond the scope of what the volunteer members of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission have time to do. When we did this back in 2019, we had two commission members, Kathleen Wallace and Alan Lipson, who spent an inordinate amount of time going over the regs, trying to make them work. And they still couldn't catch everything. So that's what that fund is in there for. It's something that's needed. In current situation, we have a schedule for parking spaces that's omitted from our regs unintentionally. It's something that's important to use in current applications that are coming before the commission regarding a subdivision down in the residential D zone. But there's a number of things that have to get cleaned up and straightened out. And so this is what that fund would be used for. But Rob is here. Hi, Rob. So I'm going to let you speak too.
Thank you, Christine. As always, we are ably supported by you and in our work, though this is a request to provide that outside expert to really help our, what I'll call a lay board of dedicated volunteers, where we're struggling a bit with this body of our zoning rules that came out of that 2019 process. And there literally are parts that don't point to each other anymore, that trips up the regulated community that is trying to develop things on a fairly routine basis. And then we're left to try to cobble things together. We've lost those two members who were so involved in that early, in that 2019 effort, are now gone. So we've also lost some of our institutional knowledge of what was being chosen, decided where. So having this request is really to get that outside expert consultant to take that time, effort, and close look at what we have on the books and really help make it make sense and make it actually much more workable than it is. So that's the budget request. Christine, anything else that I'm missing there?
I don't have anything unless somebody's got a question for me. I mean, otherwise, the only thing that's gone up this year is me, and that's my salary, and that's up to you guys. So
That's contractual. So, any questions for Christine or? Sorry, I forgot your.
It's Rob.
Mr. Klee. I know. That's the easy way out. Rob. Okay. Any questions? None. Okay. Next is Zoning Board of
Great.
Appeals.
Thank you. Good night.
Oh, you're not.
now you have me again. So everything has stayed the same with
the same,
zoning board
okay.
of appeals. The one thing that I do want to mention is that for all of the land use boards, early on in COVID, the governor's executive orders allowed us to do our legal notices on town websites. Those orders have expired, so we're back into having to publish legal notices for hearings and decisions in the newspaper. And while I fully understand that most people don't get the newspaper or read the newspaper, that's where we have to publish to be able to meet the deadlines that they have, especially for hearings and whatnot. So I'm just letting you know, because I have to do what we have to do. I try to keep those notices as short and to the point as I can, but their prices aren't dropping either. So the budget stayed the same in there, but you may see more expenditures in there this year or next year because we have to go back to using the newspaper.
Any questions on ZBA? Okay, and finally, Christine, this is you also in the wetlands?
I do wetlands too, and everything's staying the same in there.
Slight increase, right?
Just again, the note on the legal notices.
Okay. Any questions on inland wetlands? Okay. Thank you, Christine. You waited a long time to get on. Apologize.
It was interesting to listen to.
Yeah, right. You got to hear some of the other stuff. That's good. All right. So next up is the building department, which is tab 1270.
We have our new building official, Bob Dillon is here.
Yes, my name's Robert Dillon. I've been your building official since the first of the year, January 1st. I came
Okay.
on.
You replaced Andy?
I did, yeah. I am currently working part-time for the town of Woodbridge, roughly 20 hours a week. We're trying to fine-tune the online electronic permitting program so we can share information with other town departments as well. We're asking for no increase at all. As a matter of fact, we went down $11,000 to 130,859. And since July, Kathy helped me pull this together. Since July of last year, we took in 324 permits, which, as you know, each permit requires multiple inspections. We also have a project on the Litchfield Turnpike Regional Water. It's a large project for the town. It's Regional Water is doing a plant in town, and that is projected to be a $6 million project. And we brought in the building permit already, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, was about $100,000. And that doesn't include the subcontractors that'll follow the electrical, plumbing, and the heating, which is usually 25% more. We have several new houses being built. We have 2 duplexes being built down in the flats currently. That's about it, right?
Yep.
No increase. Decrease 11,000.
Since this is since most of us, it's our first time meeting you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Bob?
Sure. I'm a licensed HVAC and plumbing contractor for the state of Connecticut. OSHA certified, crane certified. I spent 35 years in construction since I right out of high school. I was a mechanical superintendent for a company called the Walter D. Sullivan Company. We mainly focused on large Yale projects in the city of New Haven. I did a lot of hospitals too as well. Danbury Hospital, St. Francis in the Hartford area, Farmington, a couple of state jobs. HVAC, medical gas, and plumbing was my forte. About 5 years ago, I joined the city of New Haven, chief mechanical inspector for the city of New Haven. Andy was leaving. I applied for the part-time building official position. I told people what I could do and what I could offer. Hired me, and I'm working around that schedule. Where I work is very flexible. So I told my boss as well what I'm doing. I had my assistant building official certification for the last 12 years, and then I went and got my building official certification. I enjoy it. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the residents, and the contractors have been very high quality. Gotten a lot of pushback so far, and it's been a good experience. Absolutely.
Good. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Yeah, I look forward to a long-term relationship.
I hope so. We like long-term. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Dillon?
I just want to comment that, just want to make a quick comment that this is one of the few departments that generate a significant amount of income.
That's correct. That's correct.
We've seen a significant uptick in the building permits, I'd say over the last year or two. So the building permit revenue has actually gone up quite a bit. So just wanted to make that comment.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll try to continue that.
Thank you.
We got it.
Next
Everybody have a
up,
good
oh. Next up is the Recreation Commission. I don't know who's here for that. Is John here?
Right here, I'm here,
Okay. How you doing, John?
and Jim's right here with me.
Okay. No camera?
No, we had to cut the budget, we have no camera.
So we don't know if you have shorts on.
I might not even have pants on, but you know what, that's.
Hold on here. 1510 is 1510. Oh God, let's see.
Matt, while you're looking for 1510, I know you've asked a lot of departments how they would get to zero.
Yes.
This is one of the departments, and I've encouraged the departments to think broadly about how to get to zero. And in this particular case, even though John has provided some possible expenditure cuts, if you consider his revenue, it's
Yeah.
actually less than last year, the recreation department. So
What's less?
if you combine the increase in their revenues with the increase in their expenditures,
Okay.
the
Yep.
total, the net
Yeah.
charge for recreation is actually less this year than it was last year.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we tend
So
to
we're all
forget.
set, you accept our budget? Oh, no, I gotta present it, all right.
All right, John, go ahead.
All right, we got, our budget is going for $555,060. The reason why it's going up is minimum wage. Minimum wage killed us from $13 to $14. Of that, we have 98 people that work for us that are under the minimum wage of our 229 people that work year round with us. And so that's the overall, we went up. If you take away our salaries that are in the salary thing and that, we're $22,000 less than 2019. We're still way down under it. But we have some hard things to cut. If we have to cut, we're only about $8,000, I think, that is not budget, that is not salary. And that's all we're asking for. We're asking for no more than that. The biggest one is part-time salary went up $19,000 because of the minimum wage. And that's it.
There's also an increase in banking, I just want to point out, because
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, because revenues went up. Most people pay by credit card. So there's a fee that the commission has decided not to pass on to the people that charge for the class, but rather to put it in their budget.
Right. And that's why we also went up on our fee. Our fee covers, a lot of that.
We go up 2% per year.
Right, we go up 2%, and if we charge them for the banking, then we'd be double hitting them again. So I think it's fair to, to say that the banking charge is a lot more because about 85-90% of the people?
Yes, 90%.
90% of the people are now charging and not coming into rec at all. Everything's done online. Everything's done like 2:00 in the morning. I don't know why or who's up, but we come in today and there's all kinds of things on there. So,
John, how about participation numbers? Let's see, how have they gone since the pandemic struck till most recently?
well, right now they're came back. Right now, this winter, it's the most we ever had at bowling. Most people ever had at bowling. The Tuesday night league, the Thursday night league are full. We had to do a little structuring there. Instead of having everybody come in at once, we had to schedule times. So only half the group comes in. Of the 40 kids, 20 come in at one time, 20 come in at another. We switched like that. Those are up there. The swimming lessons on Saturday were filled.
We're in the 200s.
Yeah,
That's where we normally.
We're normally in the 200s and we're back up to 200s. During the pandemic, we dropped down to about 100 or so. We're right back up where we were. So our numbers are pretty good. I think excellent for the pandemic. And we're going to be doing we're looking at doing some online programs right in the future, right in the next week or two or so. If something happens with the pool or anything like that, then we're ready to go online and have programs backing up what we'll lose if something shuts down. But other than that, that's our budget. And I'm pretty proud of keeping it down the way it is. To be $22,000 less than 2 years ago. Not bad. Any questions?
Any questions?
Actually, I have a question for Tony. Because the Recreation Department has experienced this loss in revenue because of COVID, I would think that that shortfall would be able to be made up by ARPA funds.
You're
Because
correct.
yeah,
Yes. Yep,
so
you're correct.
can we add that to the budget and make that budget whole?
So we would, what happened is we'd get reimbursed from ARPA for the loss of that revenue, and then the town can decide how it wants to reallocate that revenue. So that's certainly an option, but yes, we will apply for that.
Shouldn't it be allocated to the area that lost the revenue to make up for that, or no?
Well, in this case, I would say no, because they also didn't have the expenditure related to the revenue. In other words, they had cut back a lot on their staffing because there was no programming. So there was no revenue coming in, but there's no expenditure either. Right, John?
That's correct.
Right. So that's why the revenue went down. So they didn't really lose anything from their budget necessarily. It was just a reflection of reduced programming.
Right, but the ARPA funds specifically are for loss in revenue.
Right. The ARPA funds don't make that distinction. I'm just saying from our
Right.
perspective, there was
Okay.
John didn't get cut as a result. It was just he didn't have the programming. But ARPA doesn't make that distinction. They just say if you lost revenue, you can make up for it.
Right, but his budget is also going up, and I don't think he should get dinged for that. That's my point.
Right.
Any other questions for John and Jim?
Matt, I just wanted to comment. I spoke with Adam about this as well. That skating rink is a big hit.
Oh, good.
And John had a lot to do with this. In addition, the fire department put down the water, as I understand it, and people are using it like crazy.
You're not, I hope.
What?
I hope you're not.
No, not yet.
I was just down there this afternoon, checking it out, checking out the ice and everything. There were 5 or 6 people, little tiny kids on there skating.
Every time I go by, there's people on it, and people are posting it on FaceTime
And for the lightest winter we ever had, the ice is 14 inches on one side and only 7 inches, 8 inches on the other because it's not a level surface. But it's frozen all the way down. It's 14 inches down to the bottom. It's frozen all the way through. We're going to be, after this big snowstorm, Adam's going to help me get the snow up, and then we're going to resurface it. We have a little, a bucket and a hole, and I went online and found some great ways to do it. So we'll resurface it once every other week or so, and hopefully it's a big hit. And somebody called me today like this and just said, I wanted to tell you I was at a restaurant and they saw my Woodbridge fireman's jacket and they asked me, are you from Woodbridge? He goes, yes. He said, well, could you tell whoever put that ice rink in that my niece and nephew have gone berserk? My brother and his brother-in-law and sister the kids are going crazy. Every day they want to go there. So it's a really nice thing to do. And maybe down the road somewhere, we could sit down as a town and maybe put together something that's permanent, something that we could really have and function, because those rinks stay open 6 or 7 months a year. We can find a place, but that's for the future. But right now, we're doing what we can with what we have. We only spent $1,000 on a liner, and we were one of the last towns to get a liner. Orange couldn't even get one because there's nothing out there. There's no shipping and everything, but we got it in for $1,000, and the number we're averaging about 30 people. I'm thinking a day, so it's going to come down to like a buck a resident for the whole year. So it's well worth it. And I want to thank Timmy.
For those of you, excuse me, David. For those of you who are new to this, let me explain something to you about John Adamovich. He is going to eventually get this if we live long enough. John and I are up there now. He's looking to make this big enough because we know what John really wants.
I want to drive the Zamboni.
John wants a Zamboni. So someday, maybe, John, maybe, we'll see. David, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you're still on for the night skating, even though there's
we're canceling the night skating this weekend, but we're going to reschedule it, and we're going to have 4 or 5 different nights that we're going to have. The fire department's going to bring down the lights and set it up, and we'll have maybe have a cocoa night. We'll make hot chocolate for the kids.
Yeah. Hey, John, you missed your chance. When they closed the Coliseum, they sold off both the Zambonis, and they went for $4,400.
Oh my God!
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and I was going to buy one just to drive to work.
I would have bought it for you, John.
That's my big thing. And I even asked about riding if we can get rides on the Zamboni, but those in the real ice skating rinks, those boards on the outside are about $3,000-4,000 a section. And they won't let you drive it because if you hit one of those boards, and me, I back up into everything. Okay.
Okay. Anything else from Mr. Adamovich? Okay, John, thank you again.
Thanks, Matt. Thank everybody. Thank you, Beth.
Okay, Woodbridge Government Access TV, which is 11:35.
Can you hear me?
Can
I?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, this worked. My name is Pua Ford. It's there. It says the real one because we weren't sure if we could get into WebEx from two different computers. So down there where it says WGA TV 79, Matt, you want to turn on your camera there? I wanted to show the guys behind the scenes. We've got Matt in the blue shirt and Nick in the black shirt. Between the two of them and Nancy Spagnolo, they handled 6 meetings, 4 of them on one night last week while I was out visiting family. So if we could keep attracting people like that, I don't have to work so much and you save money, which is probably the big point on my on the budget I gave you, which I believe is 0.
Yes.
Pay me less, pay other people more. After that, it's all in the details. And I believe starting at the bottom of page 2 of my letter of transmittal, the real challenge will be, how do we keep it down from there? Because we always go over budget. One, we can probably defray some funds from the grant that we get from the Cable Advisory Council, even though most of that is supposed to be for capital expenses, new equipment that breaks down. Another thing is people should remember to go to bed on time instead of having 5-hour meetings. But that only happens some of the time. After that, is there anything, any question I can answer for you?
I have a quick question, but first I want to offer a big heap of praise and appreciation for your work, Pua, and the people that you're leading on your team there. It's wonderful. You really rescued us during the pandemic, especially. So with that, I wanted to ask about the possibility of the American Rescue Act grant funding possibly being able to come into play. This might be a question for you. It might be Tony's question more. But certainly we've relied on you during the pandemic, so perhaps there's a connection we can make.
I believe I gave Tony some statistics about what changed between, say, 2019 and 2021 and so on. And some of that is in a little graph, I think is on page 2 of my letter of transmittal.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Yeah.
Yeah. It helps me to look at this. I do keep all this stuff on an Excel sheet just so I know what it takes to produce any of these meetings. But the number of meetings that went on between fiscal year 2020 and the next year really made me feel better that I wasn't really being a weepy whiner about things, that stuff really did go up. And after that, it was interesting to see how many more meetings took place that were more than 2.5 hours long. And it's sort of, that's a little bit arbitrary, but by 2.5 hours, people are saying, gee, isn't it time for them to adjourn yet? And it's sort of a break point for some of us. Special meetings went up, partly because of the application at Town Plan and Zoning spring last year. And lately, now that we've added Housing Committee to the mix, and they have special meetings, sometimes on the same night as 2 other regular meetings, that's kind of extended. And it could all change once we all have the masks off, we're all vaccinated, things have calmed down. Maybe the amount of stuff we do goes down too. But I just had to notice, I looked at our YouTube feed and only one person is watching live right now. If anybody is watching at home on channel 79, I would like to mention that in the past 2 months, we have added live closed captioning, which is generated by artificial intelligence. So there's probably some hilarious translations from some of the things we say. We can add captions to programs later that come out a little bit clearer. But that takes time to prepare. So I'm concentrating on selectmen, finance, and the budget meetings for those. Anyway, that's a new addition, and it's working out better than I thought. Next
Terrific.
step. Yep.
That's very helpful for people who need the closed captioning.
Okay, any other questions for Pua? Okay, again, thank you, Pua.
I have
You
one
give us a
question
great
for
service.
Pua.
Yes.
One question for Pua. Can you do anything about the volume of the cable transmission? I have to crank my TV up to 40 to hear anything on those meetings. Is there any way to fix that?
Not at my end. No, I've done what I can.
Okay,
And that's why we added the closed captioning.
Got it.
As we go along, as we learn more about it, we might be able to, we've got it on when the meetings are on live. Adding them later takes a little bit more time, but we'll start putting them on more different meetings. And of course, there is automatic closed captioning on all the YouTube recordings as well.
Thank you, Pua.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Library Commission and Capital. Who's here?
I'm here. This is Eric.
Eric, how are you? I see you up there in the corner. There you are.
I'm here, and James Moriarty is also here, who is the chair of the Library Commission.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. There he is. I see him.
Okay. Well, however you want to present it, be our guest.
Okay. So the Library Commission and I are presenting a proposed budget that is actually slightly below last year's requested budget. This was difficult because obviously there were significant cost increases that we've had to factor in from the salary increases, the 2.4% salary increases, and 2 different minimum wage increases. But we did manage to save about $21,000 over the course of the last year as we've rebuilt the library staff. We lost a lot of staff due to the pandemic and due to retirements. So hiring people is always an opportunity to think flexibly and creatively about staffing and about how we can do more with less. And so we've done a lot over the last year to eliminate a couple of small positions and combine some positions and things like that. So we've more than offset any of the salary increase costs. However, obviously, though our proposed budget is a decrease from last year's requested budget, it's obviously not a decrease from last year's adopted budget. Last year, our budget was cut by the boards of Selectmen and Finance by $61,000. That was due to the pandemic. It's been cut the prior year by much more, $179,000, I believe, also due to the pandemic. And this made some sense. Obviously, we were closed during a lot of that, and we were not providing the same level of services during much of that time. Again, during much of that time, we're actually not even open. However, as of this month, January 2022, we're finally back to being open for a full number of hours. That's 54 hours a week, which is the same number of hours we've been open per week for about over 20 years, since at least 2001. So we're very excited to be back, but to maintain that level, it's essential that the funds that were eliminated last year are restored, especially since almost 3/4 of our budget, I believe the exact number is about 73% of our budget is salary costs. So if you cut our budget, there's not much else to cut other than salary costs. And we need staff to staff the building when we're open. So it's a fairly large building. We have 3 service desks. We're always doing stuff. We always have people in here, so we just need people to staff the building. 54 hours a week is obviously a good amount of time to keep things staffing. So we would need that 58,000 restored. If those funds were not restored, there obviously would have to be some cuts to our hours down from that 54 hours, depending on the level of the cuts. It would how many hours we have to cut would depend on the level of the cuts. I also wanted to mention that at the moment, we're not doing huge amounts of programming because of Omicron and the current state of the pandemic, but we are planning a robust slate of programming for the spring and the summer, and hopefully beyond. And especially, we're very excited to do more outdoor programming this summer. We did a huge amount of outdoor programming last summer. It was probably our biggest slate of summer programming ever. We did movies, concerts, lectures, story times, craft programs, all kinds of stuff outside, which was obviously born of necessity because of the pandemic, but it was also actually really wonderful to be out there, weather permitting. And so we would like to continue to do all that as well. But of course, programming also costs money just in terms of staff time to plan and present the programs and stuff like that. So that is basically it. The main thing is that we have found a lot of cuts, reductions in our salary lines and other lines to keep this below last year's requested budget, but obviously it is still a pretty significant increase from last year's adopted budget, but that I think is necessary and essential to keep the library at a present 54 hours a week, which I think we'd like to do, and I think the community has come to expect over the past 20 plus years that we've had those. That's it. Jim, I don't know if Jim has anything to add.
Yeah, if I could, just to echo a little bit what Eric was saying, if some of you may recall last year that we, the Library Commission and Eric as director, put forth a 4-part reopening for the library coming out of COVID. And that 4-part reopening effectively started with the library open for a set number of hours in July, increased in October, and increased in January to the 54 hours that the library is open now. So in order to implement that phased reopening, there were a number of staff additions that had to be made. And Eric did a fantastic job hiring very qualified people to come in and fill the positions where people had previously been laid off as a result of the pandemic cuts. So we now have a fully staffed library that's open 54 hours a week. And as Eric said, 73% of the budget is salary and wages. So if we're going to make cuts, we're then going to have to lay people off. And if we did that, and we got into another phased reopening, where we were open for a certain number of hours in the first quarter of the fiscal year, then increased it the second quarter, and then 54 hours again, then we're going to have to hire people again, and it becomes circular. So the budget is greater than last year's adopted budget, but it's less than last year's proposed budget, which would have allowed the library to remain open for those full 54 hours. And we worked very hard to come up with a budget that would allow for the library to remain open for those hours, understanding that we can't continue to lay people off and rehire them. It's just not going to work. It's not feasible. We hire people, Eric hires people from other libraries. We believe that the Woodbridge Library has a very good reputation and is a place where people want to work. But if there's a cycle of laying people off and then hiring other people, that's not going to be the case. So that is a concern. And again, the only place that we could really make material cuts is in wages and salaries. The other thing that I wanted to point out is in the letter of transmittal, there is a discussion of the commission considering doing away with late fees or fines. The library doesn't generate significant revenue, and those late fees and fines generate approximately $5,000 a year in revenue. The issue is not as simple as I actually thought it was. It's not just books where we have late fees. There's late fees on movies, DVDs, there's late fees on museum passes. So it may be ultimately that the commission either doesn't do away with the fines, which would eliminate the revenue cut. Again, it's $5,000. Or we may do some type of a hybrid where we have late fees on items other than books. So we would still have DVDs, museum passes, and Eric, I think, believed that that would be about a 50% revenue cut. So it'd be $2,500 instead of the full $5,000. And we've discussed doing away with the fines at our commission meetings. We wanted to be transparent with both boards and let you know that that's something that we're considering. We don't want you to think that there is a revenue stream, even if it's minimal, that's available, and then 2 months from now, it's not available. So it could be that those fines and fees are done away with, but it's still an open debated question within the commission.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, any questions for Eric or Jim? No? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Finally, the center, which
Eric,
is.
before you leave, he left.
Yeah.
He's got a capital item, Eric.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I should, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good.
That's why we
Yes,
keep
just,
him around, Eric. That's why we keep him around.
yeah. I'm sure that's the only reason. No, we do have, and this has been on the capital budget for quite a few years now. We have $30,000 to replace carpeting in the lower level stacks. That's the main adult stacks. That is, so this building was opened in 2000, so it's been about 22 years, obviously. We've replaced all the other carpeting in the building because it does get a lot of traffic. It gets worn, it gets things spilled on it, et cetera, et cetera. This is the final portion of the building that needs its carpeting replaced. We put it off for a few years. It was originally scheduled, I think, for 3 years ago. It is, I will say, it does not look great over in that area. It is probably not at the moment a actual hazard, so that is the current state of it. But it definitely does not look great, and I would say is not the kind of image we want to portray in the community. Is very shabby carpeting, but hopefully we can get that replaced soon. And just to mention that it does cost more to replace because there are huge many-ton stacks of books on top of the carpeting, and those need to be moved, which requires professional equipment. So that does increase the costs.
Tony, any chance we could use the library fund for that?
I knew you were going to ask me that question, and the answer is yes.
Well, there you go. Okay.
Eric, I have a question for you. I'm a big fan of the library. I use it all the time. And my interaction is with the people who are in basically in circulation.
Yeah.
But you have 4 or 5 people here who are what I would call brass. And could you just enlighten us as to what all these folks do? Head of circulation, head of adult circulations, head of adult services, assistant director, all of these people, what their function is?
Sure. Well, we do not actually have an assistant director anymore. That position was eliminated a couple of years ago. So that is,
It's head of circulation, head of adult services, adult service librarian, head of children's, and one children assistant.
yes. Well, each of those people had the department. So partly they are supervisors. So obviously we have, all these departments have staffing and scheduling and supervisory needs that they do. But they're all also involved in, I mean, some of them I will say are definitely involved. I mean, the head of children's and the head of circulation and the head of adult services are definitely involved with a lot of public facing stuff. They staff their the associated desks probably every day. And they are definitely involved in professional stuff like that is usually involved, say, in buying all the books. All the materials are basically purchased by those people. So, and that does, to do stuff like that does require a professional degree to plan programming for both adults and children's, to obviously, again, supervise staff. And I'll say that the one kind of discrepancy, or not discrepancy, but slightly different is the head of technical services, because that is not a front-facing position, but it's still incredibly important. Now, that person is in charge of all of the processing of books and other items. So every book has to come in, it has to be entered into the computer system, it has to be processed by putting stickers on it, barcodes, all of that stuff. And so that is actually pretty complicated work, especially cataloging of library books is, there's a very specific process to it, obviously Dewey Decimal, all of that stuff. So that is being done mostly by the head of technical services with 2 part-time assistants. So I think, I mean, all these people are basically involved in running everything in the library, especially the programming and the collection development. And all the, I guess, also the running of the website. In particular, the head of adult services is involved in the running of our website, making sure that all of our Our programs and other events are on the website, and all of our new books, all of that stuff is on the website. So that is also obviously super essential. And our social media accounts. I'm probably forgetting things. They do a lot of stuff.
Okay. So when you cut back hours, cut back hours in the library, which positions actually get reduced?
Well, it is usually, I will say, obviously, these are what the positions you're talking about are full-time positions. So when layoffs are made and hours are reduced, it is for obvious reasons part-timers. Part-timers, I would say there's two different. There's a lot of assistants who are probably mostly the front-facing people at the circulation desk. But it is also some of the part-time. We do have professional librarians at mostly at the reference desk who were laid off in March of 2020. The two part-timers there. So it's really all the part-timers. So there's a bunch of part-timers doing different things in the library. But they are a lot of that is necessary to have them because obviously, again, they're staffing the desks and we need people to do that. Even if something like the technical services work can be done from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, whatever, but you still need somebody on the desk at 7 o'clock at night or on a Saturday to help people. So that is why we kind of need a lot of staff in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, maybe you can describe for the boards, if it's okay, the qualifications of some of the people that you've hired within the last 2 to 3 months.
Sure. I mean, I think most or all of the people we've hired have had, they've had significant experience in other libraries. So to a certain extent, we are poaching people, but we're getting very good people. We have people who've worked at different libraries around here. Some people have worked in Fairfield County libraries. So they have experience doing what they're doing here. So we don't have to train them, which is excellent. We also have hired a librarian who has over, I think, a quarter century of experience at the New Haven Public Library. So that is an excellent thing to get. So getting people who are experienced doing professional work, collection development, programming, all of that, answering reference questions for a very long time, to be able to get them in here is a great thing. And that wealth of experience definitely shows in how these people interact with the public.
Those individuals are part-time also, correct?
Yes, we have not hired full-time. I mean, yeah, we haven't really hired full-timers in quite a while. If we have, they've been promoted from within.
And are those the people that would be laid off to the extent that there's budget cuts?
Yes. So yes, they'd have to either be laid off or have their hours significantly reduced. Even if they're not laid off, if they have their hours significantly reduced, it's very likely they would leave anyway, because they probably need a certain number of hours for various reasons. So yes, all those are people who would have to be let go.
Okay. Anybody else? Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, the last item on the agenda, and one that's very simple, is the center, tab 1190, and basically it's the utilities for the center. So it's actually a reduction. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, this is the example of the UI program I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
We replaced the lighting with LED lighting, and so you can see the savings as a result.
I'm assuming there's no questions on that. Okay, so we have one more meeting. Karen, I'm assuming we're going to be good for not having a Thursday meeting? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
We're good.
So next, we don't have to worry about weather anymore because we don't have to come to town hall. So next Tuesday, we have a bunch of interviews to do with various departments. So it's Tuesday, February 1 at 6 o'clock. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Have a good weekend, and hopefully we all weather this. It's going to be a very small storm because we don't want Public Works to be going out all weekend. So it's all over the map, but I don't know. If Joe Fury says we're going to get 2 feet, we're going to get all 2 inches. So
Stay safe, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.